people don't remember places. They remember people and experiences. People remember feelings, and then they remember the person or perhaps the place. The town isn't important. The name of the location isn't important because it's the feeling that you embody.
Welcome to the Go Go Bistro podcast, where we dish up inspiration for women who are hungry for change and ready to make it happen. I'm your host, Noelle Van, an author, creator, and empowerment coach who spent years in corporate America helping innovators and leaders ride the waves of change with ease and grace. I now work with women to step into change and unleash the power they have to create a life they love. This is a space to let go of the fear and say yes to possibility. Whether you're contemplating a change in your career, relationship, health, lifestyle, or anything in between, nothing is off the table. I'll be serving up simple insights to help you manage the ups and downs of change and share my interviews with successful women who took a leap of faith to create the life they knew they were meant to live, sharing their wisdom, advice, and all the juicy lessons they've learned along the way. So join me at my favorite little two-top, pull up a chair, and let's get started. Have you ever just wanted to get away from it all and get a fresh perspective on life? To escape the day-to-day and immerse yourself in a whole new culture or way of living? Have you ever wondered what it would be like to take a trip on your own without being beholden to someone else's schedule, letting your curiosity run the agenda as you explore and discover yourself along the way? Our guest today is no stranger to traveling solo and was led into it by her sense of adventure and drive to overcome a debilitating accident that left her making a promise to herself she was determined to keep. Born in California and raised on the beautiful island of Oahu, Pamela Holt studied theater and film at UCLA, where she developed a passion for storytelling. As she went on to pursue her acting and musical theater career, her star began to rise as she found herself singing with Barry Manilow at the Hollywood Palladium and selling her first indie film, The Three Amigas, at Cannes Short Film Corner. Pamela's plans came to a screeching halt when she experienced a traumatic car accident at the age of 35 that left her immobilized. A few years later, she was hit by another driver, and after extensive spinal surgery, she knew her long road of recovery would mean abandoning her acting and singing pursuits. She made a promise to herself as she was being wheeled into surgery that she would travel 80 countries by the time she was 50. Now in her 50s, Pamela has certainly made good on her promise. She's journeyed to over 81 countries, and along the way began working as a travel reporter and host while documenting content from her travels. Pamela is a producer, creator, and host of her new show, Me, Myself, and the World, The Art of Solo Travel, a new TV series now streaming on Amazon Prime and Go Traveler, which is a love letter to the journey of rediscovering oneself and embracing second chances, or better yet, second acts. Pamela, we are so very excited to have you here. Welcome to Go Go Bistro.
Thank you. And thank you for having me, Noelle.
It's so great to talk to you, Pamela. I think there's a part of me that has more questions that we're going to have time for because I'm so intrigued by travel and I've enjoyed it myself for so many years that it's just a joy to have you here. And I'm so excited to talk to you about all of the things that you're doing. But let's talk just a little bit about, you grew up in Hawaii, correct?
I did. I was born in California, one of the rare California natives. And we moved to Hawaii when I was 10. It was so exciting and so frightening. It's hilarious to tell this story. My sister will just die. She was super worried about moving to Hawaii, and evidently somebody in her class told her that she'd be living in a grass hut.
Hey, that doesn't sound so bad.
Eventually she confessed it's because she thought she would be living in a grass hut.
Oh. Now, how old were you?
I was 10 and my sister was 12.
Okay. So wow, that's so amazing. Like, were you at all, was this parents travel or your father was traveling for work, or was it, moving because of a job, or what was it for?
Actually, my parents decided to take a year and a half off. And I know we went to Hawaii for 6 months, and every 6 months we would vote and see who wanted to go home, which clearly never happened. So after a year and a half, my parents thought, okay, we got to go back to California, get all of our stuff, sell our house. We're going to move here permanently.
Oh, they sound so adventurous.
They were. And it was also, in all fairness, to, set expectations for people. It was a little bit of a midlife crisis, I think, for both of them. And they really, really spread their wings when they were there. My mom took Japanese brush painting. My father played tennis with his friends. He finished up his pilot license. There were just so many really cool, adventurous things. And for them, it was also a time to really spend with family.
Yeah.
Family time was a huge thing for us.
Well, and to be in nature like that, I mean, I would think that it would kind of make things a lot simpler, right? I mean, to be in a smaller setting like that, there was a lot of outdoor time.
Yeah, there was a lot of outdoor time. My dad was a volunteer baseball umpire, which he loved. There was less distractions.
Yeah.
And most importantly, less distractions coming from where we came from in California. It was about the cars you drive, the house you live in, and the clothes you wear, and the vacations you go on. And in Hawaii, it was about the people who you were, who you are. That my sister and I learned very quickly with our friends. Some of the Hawaiian and Asian influence of culture and values were instilled very quickly, because if you didn't, you weren't cool.
But what a great age to learn that.
Oh my gosh. I always say that my parents moving to Hawaii was literally the best gift they ever gave my sister and I.
Well, and I think that, the LA pace, even at that age, I'm sure you can feel, like you just said. I mean, it's about other things, right? So going back to a simpler life is really what a gift to give to your children. But so let's talk a little bit just about earlier so you were in a kind of on the rise in showbiz, shall we say, in your earlier career. And was it age 35 that you had the first accident?
Yes. And the fact that we have to say first,
I know.
I cringe every time I think about it. There were actually 3, and they were semi back to back. I just kept thinking, what lesson am I supposed to learn? I asked myself that a little bit later. At first, I had to overcome all the anger.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I got really lucky. I got the very first professional audition I ever went on, I booked, and it was Indecent Proposal. And that was an exciting movie, super exciting buzz about it. So that was really fun. And I also booked a duet singing with Barry Manilow. Also, I ended up becoming, I worked in cast doing musical theater, and then became a headline entertainer, which was super exciting. And I was actually performing on a ship when I met the producer of The Producers, the New York show. Basically, he said, look, I can't give you a job while you're out here. You've got to come to New York. After 10 years of bouncing around to different jobs, being on and off, it was my goal to just get back to New York, because I had already auditioned there several times, and book a show, that bucket list.
Yes. Yes.
And when I came home, my agent sent me on an audition. I actually was at my final callback, and my agent had told me that I had booked my first Broadway tour. It was for Smokey Joe's.
Oh.
Yeah, I was about 4 blocks away, and I got into this accident. This woman came flying through a red light, and she wrapped my car around a telephone pole.
Oh my God. I know you said that there was 3. So this is the first. I mean, how did you walk away from this one? Was this what happened?
I broke the windshield with my head. Evidently, because I was 5'4", some cars are built where people 5'4" or 5'5" and under can go kind of up and over the seatbelt. And that's exactly what I did. And some girl, she heard the accident but didn't see it, and she came out and pulled me out of my car before we caught on fire. And then some stranger just showed up, and evidently they said he just walked up without saying a word. He pulled some cables and then walked away, and all the sparks went away, and my car didn't catch on fire. The girl told me later that even the police or the fire were like, oh, who did this? Who disconnected all the cables? And everyone standing there said, this guy showed up and did it and walked away. We have no idea.
Oh, Pamela, that's mysterious and telling right there.
And the girl that told me, that pulled me out of my car, she's so adamant about the story. It was even life-changing for her.
Well, that's a guardian angel at work. I believe in those things. I really do. I really do. So did you go, obviously you went to the hospital. What condition were you in? Were you?
It's a sort of, first of all, I'm remembering it, and I don't remember it perfectly, because I hear people will tell me stories and I'll say, that didn't happen. They're like, I stayed at your house 4 days. What are you talking about? Now that I put it all together later, I basically had so much swelling in my brain. What happened is I checked into an LA hospital, and my insurance was out of Nevada. And so I called my best friend, or actually that girl called my best friend. And I said, you've got to get me out of here because I'll pay $100,000 here for all the surgeries I need. And in Las Vegas, I'll pay $5 copay. And so basically, I got to Las Vegas plane, which was probably the most traumatic thing in my life with broken bones. It was really nice. The stewardess gave me like a double shot of whiskey. And she's like, you probably shouldn't do this, but this is the only thing that's going to get you through it. I proceeded once I ended up getting to my mom's house actually in Arizona after they reset my arm and did some check over, and I slept for 30 days.
Wow.
And then when I got up, I had so much trouble. I knew who everybody was, but I couldn't remember people's names. Like I couldn't even remember my best friend's name. She would laugh and say, okay, who are you going to introduce me to today?
So there was a concussion involved?
Yeah, I would say a concussion or just brain swelling. So here I went from 110 minutes worth of material as a headline entertainer, as a singer with, sometimes a 6 to 14 piece orchestra, to not even knowing my best friend's name. So I just stopped.
Well, that's one of those life-changing moments too, where it kind of not only brings pause, but really makes you kind of readjust and rethink everything just because you're relearning.
Yeah. And I think I was so healthy and so adventurous at that time. And I had a real coming to Jesus meeting with myself when I would have to take a nap after taking a shower and brushing my hair. And that went on for, 9 months, 10 months. I had to redefine myself. And I also learned, now I can look back at it. And this actually happened. It was such a weird moment at a Trader Joe's. I'm standing in line. What made me choose a pink neon cast? I have no idea. This kid in line is standing there, and I'm so tired all the time at this point. And he looks over at me and he's flirting with me, and he can't be more than 16 or 17. And he goes, "Can I sign your cast?" And I looked at him like, wait, what? And then everyone else in line, like 20 people in the store, all ran over to sign my cast. And they gave me a Sharpie. And this woman comes up to sign it, and she signs it, and she says to me, "What did you learn?" And at first I was furious because I didn't cause the accident. I didn't cause any of this. And I said something, and she just calmly put her hand on me, and she said, "There's a lesson to learn. Just look for it."
Wow.
And it took me about 6 months to stop being mad at that woman. And then it hit me. It hit me, all the things I had learned. And I think the most important lesson was that I looked around at people and I stopped judging them because I didn't know what got them to that point. I didn't know why they were in a wheelchair. I didn't know why they were perhaps overweight. I didn't know all these things. And suddenly I thought, well, maybe they got into a car accident. Maybe it wasn't their fault. And so it was a huge, important lesson for me.
It's kind of like it widens your perspective, knowing that you're in a place where somebody could be looking at you and thinking the same thing. Like, people make judgments about where people are in life all the time. That is so powerful that she said that to you, though. You've had some people enter into your fear in ways that are kind of unexplainable.
If we had 3 hours, the amount of times that, I guess you can call them angels, have shown up and either saved my tuchus, I cannot tell you, that I've traveled, or literally picked me up and dropped me on the right road, on the right path.
Okay, so you were out. Obviously, you're not in the hospital at this point. You're recuperating at home. So are you fully recovered at the point that this next incident happens?
I feel like the second one happened about 2 years later, and it was minor, but scary.
Yeah.
Then the third one happened around when I was about 38 and a half. This guy hit me going about 40 to 45 miles an hour. I was completely stopped. And it's the kind that happens in slow motion where you see them coming at you and you're like, please look up. Unfortunately, it was kind of a weird accident. He hit me really hard, but I had a solid car, which was great. My torso went one way, and my legs went, like, one went to the right, one went to the left, and it basically popped my hip and just ripped it apart. And then on top of it, it was the night before Thanksgiving, which all Americans know is just the biggest travel day of the year. And pops, because I wasn't bleeding, I was bruised up already and very hurt, but they said, if we don't see blood, we can't come get you because the traffic is too big, which is the most insane thing I've ever heard. I went home and then, couldn't get out of bed the next day.
Oh,
and then it was Thanksgiving and no one could help me. I want to say this because I think other people will be listening. I had a very good looking, sporty boyfriend at the time, and he was a semi-pro baseball player. And so I acted so tough, like I could keep on going.
Yeah.
And I proceeded to do CrossFit for the next year.
No.
Yes, because I wanted to fit in.
Was this like painful to do?
It is so tough. Oh, I was also about 10 years older than him. And so I pushed through the pain thinking I wanted to be part of his life and part of this community, which is an amazing community. I also, at the time, was seeing a doctor and he kept saying that, oh, this was just something in my leg. And that was what I was getting treated with, prolotherapy and all these different things, physical therapy for something in my leg. And I guess as luck would have it, I had to switch health insurance. Gosh, I feel like we're getting so far off solo travel, but all of this led me to this point. So I have to switch insurance. The new insurance company says, oh, I see you've been going to this doctor. We request an MRI in order to grant you insurance. And I laughed it off. I was like, okay, whatever, I'll get an MRI. The MRI came through and it was sent to almost a family member who happens to be a doctor. And he said, I need you to talk to somebody. And I spoke to this guy who was a spine surgeon that he had sent the MRI to. The guy said, are you standing? And I said, yes. And basically he said, I just made an appointment. You're having surgery on Monday. I don't even know how you're standing. And you've been doing this for a year and a half. And I said, oh yeah, I pretty much wanted to drive my car off a cliff. The pain was so, I hadn't slept more than 3 hours for a year and a half. And that was it. I was going in for spine surgery on Monday, called my mom in Hawaii. I said, come out tomorrow.
Wow.
And I spent the weekend listening to this song by Tim McGraw called Live Like You Were Dying. So I went race car driving. I bought this most bold purple MAC lipstick you could ever imagine. And I said, I am going to live like I am dying this weekend. And I did. I had a ball.
You go into surgery on Monday, I'm assuming. What was going on was spine related.
It was a bulging disc. He just couldn't believe that I was standing upright.
Wow.
And I was telling him, I said, I don't have any pain in my back. It's only in my leg. And he eventually, what he explained to me was that sometimes when pain is so severe in multiple places, your brain just chooses which one to focus on.
Right.
And so it turned out that I had a bursitis in my hip where everything had been torn apart, as well as this bulging disc, and then something else with my leg. So I did a couple things. So that weekend, the girl that I was with that whole weekend, I was like, let's go on an adventure. We decided we wanted to go backpacking in the Middle East when I got better. So on the Sunday, I called American Airlines. I booked my trip, but I didn't pay for it. And I said, look, can you put notes in my file that if I call back, that means I lived, and otherwise, if I don't call back, I probably didn't make it. And this the poor operator, she's like, you better call back. I'm going to check your file on Monday.
Gosh. No pressure there. No pressure there. Well, no, was this surgery? I mean, clearly spinal surgery is not to be taken lightly. Did they give you some sort of prognosis, or did they just say, you're going in for surgery, everything will be fine?
Well, when you go in for spine surgery like this, they do let you know there are chances. You have to sign a form that says you can die and you also can become paralyzed. So they are very, very clear about that. And not in a scary way, just an informed way. So what I did, I had heard that if you go into surgery with a really positive attitude, it can affect your outcome. So I made the team mix CD, literally going from Madonna to AC/DC and back to, say, like operatic music. All my favorite songs.
Love that.
In this MAC lipstick that was super bold. And I'm me in. I'm slightly high from the stuff they've given me. And I reach over and use the guy's scalpel and like put on my lipstick. Doctor is looking at me going, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm so good if I'm going to go out. And I'm like, I made you a mixed CD. Have fun. And I think that set the tone for a lot of positivity. You know, if you believe in quantum physics, or everybody, there is quantum physics, but if you believe in the power of quantum physics, I sort of set that intention in that room. And
Yes.
it came out with shining colors.
When did this promise get made to yourself, before or after?
Oh gosh, definitely that weekend. So before.
Okay. What made you think 80 countries before 50?
I thought 80 was achievable. I thought 100 was a little, like I was a little far away for 100, but 80 I knew I could hit. And also I love traveling in Asia, and you can hit a lot of countries very quickly there. So
You had a background in travel to begin with. You had been traveling prior to that.
oh yes. I started traveling. Our first big family trip was going to Asia when I was 13.
Nice.
I turned 14 in Hong Kong. This was sort of the moment where I definitely got the travel bug. I had worked all summer. I was an assistant pool cleaner with this super cool Polynesian guy. I'd saved up money. And the reason I took the job originally was because he gave a free McDonald's lunch every day. I had saved up my money, which my parents, had my sister and I earn extra money if we wanted to have spending money on our trip. And I bought myself a Seiko watch with the black lizard band, the white face, and the black Roman numerals, and sort of oblong. It was the watch of the early 80s. And so we went to Jimmy's, which was somewhat of a non-seafood restaurant in Hong Kong. For some reason, everybody joined in when the waiters sang happy birthday. I mean, I remember sitting there. I was at a round table, but I felt like I was at the head of the restaurant wearing a fancy watch that I had earned. And I realized that was how I wanted to spend every birthday, in some other country doing something cool.
I love that. I can only share this because this reminds me of, I was actually in Italy with my sister on my 40th birthday. They did a fireworks display for my 40th. I could do this every single year. Like it makes that birthday celebration so memorable, but also you're in such a different place and you're kind of immersed in this other culture, and everybody's, being so open and friendly. And I don't know, there's something about that excitement and that spirit that was just really, I would never forget.
It speaks to something really important about travel. Well, first of all, I think it was so wonderful because your spirit showed up, your energy showed up, and the town just joined in with you. And on top of it, people don't remember places. They remember people and experiences. People remember feelings, and then they remember the person or perhaps the place. The town isn't important. The name of the location isn't important, because it's the feeling that you embody. Even just telling me that story, I could feel it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, even telling the story, I see it in my mind exactly where I was. I can see the whole scene. But so back to this. So you are in Hong Kong. This is the moment that it hits you, that the travel bug is it. And then this kind of comes back in this moment of, obviously going into a very scary situation. So you get out of surgery. Are you like, okay, it's time. I've got to hit the road.
I was such a good patient after the surgery because I had a goal. I knew that I wanted to go backpacking. I knew that my first trip was 3 months later, which the doctor said, absolutely no way. And I said, I'll call you when I get there. I'll send you a postcard. 3 months later, I had a job working on directing a show. So I had to travel for that. And that was sort of getting my feet a little wet again, getting out, being careful not to lift my suitcases just for that amount of time. Let's see, I'm forgetting exactly what month I had the surgery, but by July, actually the end of July 9th, I left for the Middle East, and I had a 40-pound backpack and I was ready to go.
So you were fully recovered by then, I'm assuming.
I think having that goal, going into it and having that goal was so important for my healing.
I bet. And then you went with a friend.
I did. I went with a friend. Her name is Sherry, and she actually came to the hospital to see me the day I was born. She was my next door neighbor, and so her mom brought her over to see the new baby.
Oh, so you were friends since way little.
Since day one. And in fact, almost every birthday now, we get together and we make this fun little We go to all the free stuff, the Starbucks to get a drink, the Denny's, this and that. And we make our rounds decked out in birthday attire. And oh my gosh, we're ridiculous together. We have so much fun.
See, everybody needs a friend like that. I have one of my best friends who I've known since I was 5. So it's, those are very special friendships. And they will do just about anything with you, which is what makes it even better. Okay, so if my calculations are correct, we're talking like within because it's by 550. Now, granted, how many countries had you already crossed off your list before then? Had you been to a bunch before? Or was this like 80 between that time and 50?
Honestly, by the time I went to the Middle East, I think I was around 72.
Okay.
Maybe 71. I knew I had 8 or 9 countries that I had to make up in the next couple years. And a lot of them I hit. So for my 40th birthday, I went to Peru. I walked to Machu Picchu from Cusco up through the Salcantay Trail, which was the hardest trail, which was crazy.
So you had been 72 countries though.
Yes.
So what brought you to these? Did you just travel every year?
I did a lot of traveling for myself, but then I also worked for Royal Caribbean and Celebrity. I had been a singer for a while, so I did hit some countries that way. And I also worked on Seabourn. I would direct the shows. So let's say they would send me over to Asia to work on a ship for 2 weeks. Well, luckily, I would say, can I go a month early? And sure, a flight is a flight. So as long as that flight was the same price a month earlier, I would go on a flight and I'd top and tail every single work trip with my own travel.
Oh, that's brilliant.
By the time I went to Asia, they paid for the flight. I'd travel around for a month. I'd work for 2 weeks and then maybe do a little bit more traveling. My trip was paid for. The cost of my personal travel was generally covered by that one job. So I'd break even.
So here's one thing that comes to mind, because I really think, not everybody out there has traveled solo. Mm-hmm. And from personal experience, no, and I'm sure you could attest to this, that it's not only a level of courage that comes with it, at least in the beginning, when you take that first trip alone. There is so much that you learn about yourself in the process. Like, can you tell me, what are some of the nuggets that you've taken away from all of the travels that you've done, especially on your own, where you're kind of out there just exploring?
I think perspective is the biggest nugget. And I think for you as well, since you travel, you gain a perspective of what you have in life. I say maybe what you have, what you don't have, what you want. I think those are really important. Perspective really is, for me, it leads to gratitude. It leads to kindness because you understand where everybody else is coming from, or at least you have a perspective from their point of view on the ground. Boots on the ground. You're in a country. You're seeing how people are living. And importantly, if you do home sharing, whether it's, Airbnb or Casa Particular, if you're in Cuba, whatever that looks like, you really get to see people and how they live and experience that. I think one of my most unique experiences that was totally unplanned, I was in Cairo. I chose to be with the same taxi driver every single day. Needless to say, always buying him lunch, always buying all his drinks and really befriending him because it's affordable for us. And on the last day, I had a few things planned, but this was like day 5. And he looked at me, he goes, "Get in the car. We're going somewhere." I was like, oh my goodness, where are we going? And he took me to the City of the Dead, which I really didn't even know about that. At the time, there was really no internet, certainly not on our phones. Yeah. So I wasn't aware of it. And he took me into people's homes to see these tomb keepers. These people live with a person who has passed away. It's a burial site, but they've built the house around it. And they live there full time, generation after generation. And I went in and out of the homes of his friends and family members and got to see a perspective I never would have seen and ask them real questions like, aren't you scared of this dead person? You're sleeping next to a tomb, and really hearing it from them, what their perspective was and the honor that they had to take care of this person, this holy person, whoever it was.
So it's really kind of a guardianship that they take. That's their role, is to be guardians of the dead.
Yes, but it's usually a specific person. It's one tomb, somebody that was of importance, that it was their responsibility to watch over this for I don't know how long. I'm guessing eternity. What a unique experience, and that perspective, that firsthand experience, came from kindness, because I treated him with kindness. And every lunch, I would have loved to have sat there and just relaxed, but we spoke English. I corrected words. He taught me a few words in Egyptian, that exchange. Sometimes traveling is work, but what you gain from it is so much more.
When you're traveling, especially when you're in someone else's culture, there is a generosity of spirit that comes through that you recognize more than you would normally, because you're a little out of sorts. So you're new to the environment. They're not. And maybe it feels like it's amplified when you're in that kind of mode where you feel like, wow, there are so many giving people in the world. I mean, it gives you a perspective on that in a different way, I feel like, because they're welcoming you into their culture. And depending on what, how welcoming they are is going to obviously be what you take away from it. But I found more times than not, it's really surprising in a really good and lovely way.
Absolutely. And, some of the other things you talk about, like the nuggets or perhaps the lessons I've learned, I think my defining sort of motto is feel the fear and do it anyway. Somehow I came across this book in college, and that sort of became the defining motto for my life. Yes, I'm going to be scared. When I was 19, I took my first trip to Japan by myself to work for the summer. And I was scared. I think a lot less scared than most people, because, to be honest, Japan was more similar to my home in Hawaii than the mainland of America was. When I first came to college in America and the mainland, I was more in culture shock than moving to Japan, which sounds crazy.
Okay, that's something. Yeah.
Because that was what I had then grown up with. So I was used to the smells, the food. Smells are so important. You can walk into a home and smell bacon or a cake being made or cookies being made, and it makes you feel very familiar. And in Japan, the smells were very familiar to me with all the food. It felt like home.
It's funny that you say to me, when you're talking about the different places that you've been to, and yes, I can see what you mean by feel the fear and do it anyway. You strike me as a very spirited, courageous person. Like and not in the like outwardly, not necessarily like outwardly courageous or boastful or anything like that, but like I could see you walking into a room and really kind of, it comes alive. I mean, just from your description of your surgery, to have that, you know what I mean? To have the gumption to be like, hey, I'm going to make this a positive experience. So you strike me as a go-getter. Like you'll go get it. You'll go after the experience, which is, I think a lot of us struggle with that. I know I do. And when you just said that you travel, I'm like, gosh, I haven't traveled really in 15 years.
I do want to say, for a lot of the women out there, I don't have kids. So in a sense, I have been allowed to be a little selfish. I say that the countries are my kids, because I've, gone into them and learned something new and acquired something from each of these countries where people have kids, and that's their legacy.
If there was a woman out there that is contemplating doing something like that, what kind of advice would you give her to, I don't know, play around with it a little bit?
I think the first thing is to get your feet a little dirty. And I say that, or get your feet a little wet maybe. And then when you get there, get your feet a little dirty. And what I mean by that is, let's say there are several companies that do solo tours in a group, where you show up as a solo traveler. I know OAT is one of them. Flashpack is one of them. And you can go in, you can do a solo group tour, and then tail on a few days by yourself. You're already used to the language. You're used to the place, the location, and you've maybe got a little lay of the land, and then stay a few days extra, maybe start with 2 days. And then you're solo traveling for 2 days. And that says, okay, 1, do I like this? And 2, I already feel comfortable here. Now I just have to do 2 days. And if I really don't like it, I can go back to my hotel and hang out, or I can leave early. And then when you get to when you're feeling a little bit better, maybe the next time, put a few days on the beginning of a group tour. And I love these solo group tours that these companies are creating, because you don't have to wait around for permission, and you certainly don't have to wait around for family or friends to share.
Well, and there is a beauty too in other people that are traveling solo that are having their own experiences, right? So you're meeting people that are they're looking for something a little different and new in their lives as well. So it just brings this really nice energy together of people that are kind of seeking out something different and new for themselves.
You're going to meet like-minded people, and you can feed off that energy, which is so exciting. You were talking earlier, this is what I was thinking about that I wanted to share was thank you for the wonderful compliment. I do tend to walk into a room and I either turn it on or I blow it. I don't know which one. But I think a lot of women need to realize, maybe sit down or ask others what their value is. Because when you walk into a room and you know your value, for me, I know my value when I walk into a room. I can make a room smile. I can make people smile, whether I'm being silly or relating some of my travel stories. I've learned over the years what my value is. And funny enough, I've talked to my mom and she said, like as young as 3 and 4 years old, now this is the 70s, people would come and knock on the door. Neighbors would come knock on the door and say, oh, I'm here for the 3 p.m. show. And my mom would be like, what 3 p.m. show? She goes, well, your daughter came by earlier. My mom didn't even know I had left the house.
Were you doing shows for the neighbors?
Yeah. I would jump off my swing set in some sort of like Evel Knievel fashion and then break out into song. And I'd have chairs set up. They'd actually show up for these shows. And people would ask me, what do I want to do when I grow up? And I'd always say, I want to make people smile. I never said I want to be an entertainer. Eventually I learned, oh, that's what entertainers do, or that's what storytellers do. And then I sort of learned a little bit more and I said, oh, I think I like making people feel something. It's so easy to walk around and not feel anything, to be on autopilot. And I realized my gift was that I could make people smile. I could make people feel, whether I made them feel through song, through my acting, or through telling these stories about travel.
Yes, which is a perfect segue to my next question. So you started this show, was it last year?
Yes, it actually just released. And if I can, it's on Amazon Prime, Amazon Freevee, Go Traveler, and Sling TV. It's made it to the big times.
Congratulations. That is amazing.
Thank you. It feels so good because we filmed it a little bit ago through editing. That always takes a lot of time. And when you have up to 5 cameras and almost 23 days of filming, there's a lot of footage to go through.
How many countries have you covered it's your second season now, right?
We just released first season, and second season will come out at the end of the year. This season 1 and 2, I'm in Southeast Asia, and I start off in Bali, which I have 4 great episodes there. It's such a phenomenal island. Oh my gosh.
I can't wait to see that, because Bali I'm fascinated with.
It is so interesting because it's so different. There's 18,000 islands. And Bali is just one of them. It used to be a kingdom, and there are a few of the royalty still left on Bali, which is interesting. I got to meet one of them.
I was going to say, so as part of the show, because I know you're the producer of this, do you get to kind of arrange where you go to?
Right. Oh, that was so exciting. It started for my 50th birthday. I really did not want to have a party or go to a bar or do something sort of stereotypical. And I thought, okay, I'm going to take myself on a golden jubilee. So I planned to fulfill that promise to myself and make it so that I literally landed in my 80th country on my 50th birthday.
Oh my gosh, that's such a milestone. That's like, yes, you've hit it.
And so I landed in Bhutan, but I had hit 4 other countries and 4 or 5 other countries before I landed in Bhutan. And a couple of those countries I had already been to, but some of them were new, in order to land literally on my actual birthday, like touchdown. I think we touched down at like 10 a.m. and I jumped off the second step. I was like, oh, I'm going to skip the last step. I'm going to go right from the second step and land on the ground and be like, woohoo, number 80. So on that trip, it was 7.5 weeks, and I scouted for the series. I scouted the whole time so that I could go back with a cameraman. And I had already done everything that you see on the show. I had already done solo as a solo traveler, and then returned with a cameraman to film it the second time.
Oh my gosh. So you kind of you're reliving some of the experiences, not necessarily reliving them, but you're reliving some of the themes that you had sort of touched upon when you were there previously.
Well, it's an expensive job because I'm the producer. I front everything myself from previous jobs that I've had. I was saying this to you earlier. I didn't spend money on clothes and property. I've been a solid investor, to plan for my future because I was a single gal. And at the same time, I spent all my excess income that I had on travel because it brought me so much joy. I was either planning the next trip or still reliving the trip I had just come home from. And in the meantime, telling a whirlwind of stories to friends.
Right. But now, so that's the other question I have is when you started traveling on your own, so you hit the 80th country, was the seed planted about the series before then? Like, had you been doing any hosting or travel?
I had been on the Florence Henderson show. I was a travel host for her and did 8 episodes. But the funny thing is, I didn't travel anywhere. When they found me, when they had found that at that point, I think I'd been to 60 countries, they realized they didn't need to send me anywhere. I'd already been everywhere. So I was a really cheap commodity to them. And so I had the experience. And of course, I had experience in front of the camera. And what to me is so wonderful about this show is I had years of performing, years of being on camera as a director for Royal Caribbean and Celebrity, where I would direct their shows. I had the directing background, plus I had already been making short films and, in fact, sold a short film at the Cannes Short Corner. So I had all of these experiences and I married them all into one. But I did it on my own terms and I did it as the owner, which is, for me, the key.
I was going to say that's the best way to do it, right?
Yes. And more women, we have the value and we can do this. We can. And let me tell you, there are so many times that I thought, oh my God, I'm spending my life savings making this show and it may end up for free on YouTube.
But you have to have that, right? You have to have that, even the fear of like failure to say,
yes,
okay, but I still want to do it.
Yes. And that wonderful quote of the person who makes it is the person who fails and gets up one more time. And when I tell you, I must have called 400 to 500, I would say 485 people in this industry to get my series launched. Once I had made it, there was still no guarantee that it would launch. And I called every single person in town I knew and every single person in town I didn't know. And eventually got it sold.
So tell me a little bit about selling it, just because I think that's such a milestone, first of all, and what an undertaking to get to a place to then have that happen. How did it happen? Was it serendipitous like all of the other stories?
Funny enough, it was just pure hard work. Yeah. But there was definitely an element to it. When I couldn't get it sold, when travel just wasn't the thing during the pandemic, I started to reverse engineer it. So I went through IMDb or IMDb Pro and I looked at every travel channel and I looked at every producer and every associate producer and line producer. And I said, okay, some of these people have moved up to executive producer. Some of these people have moved up into a network. So I started tracking down every person. And eventually I came across the show and I don't even remember whose show it was. And I saw that they had distribution with a company called Go Traveler. And so I start doing research on Go Traveler. I find the person who's in charge of development and acquisition, this guy named Josh. And, we messaged back and forth on LinkedIn and we had a Zoom interview planned because they're in Chicago. When the Zoom starts, he doesn't say hello or anything. He starts with, I've been investigating you while I've been waiting for you to pick up the Zoom call. And I see that you're Second City. Now, Second City is an improv troupe.
Yeah.
And the motto of Second City is yes and. It's the motto of most improv. And so without missing a beat, I looked at him, I said, yes, and we both started laughing. And we knew right away, like that. We talked for another 2 hours.
That's chemistry right there.
Yes.
That's chemistry right there.
We knew right away. He's like, well, I love your show. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. And so over time, we worked out all the details. And then they're not only a channel, but they're also a distributor. So they helped me get onto Amazon.
I think that's a little serendipitous too, just in terms of like being able to, and I think there's so much to be said too about the energy that you feel from someone too, where you're kind of like, okay, this is a connection. This definitely is a meaningful connection.
There is. And thank goodness. I mean, all those things that we do, I always go back to the value. All those things that we keep adding to our mix, all those ingredients, you never know where they're going to come to help you later. I see so many women who devalue all their experiences and all their skills that they've learned. And I think they should make a website, even if they don't show it to anyone, or they should it's not really a resume, but they should write down all the things they've learned and done, whether it's, I know how to make a Girl Scout patch to I led a group on this or that, whatever it is, all of these add up. And all of these come into value as to who you are. And I think we should celebrate all of that because you just never know when you're going to use that skill.
Now, first of all, we're going to put all of your information on the show notes. So we're going to have all of the links to your show. And is there anything else coming up of note that's, besides the show or beyond the show that you want to share with us?
Yes, well, for sure. Season 2 of Me, Myself, and the World, The Art of Solo Travel, is coming up later this year. You can, of course, stream season 1. And I am in the process of working out to film season 3 and 4, which will be exciting. And in the meantime, I'm also directing. I have a show called Scottsdale Steel, which is a reality show and absolutely nothing like travel. I get to use my directing skills, and we're in the process of selling it now. So that's exciting.
Nice. Pamela, you are moving and shaking. You've got a lot going on.
Thank you. Yes. Something I wanted to share with your listeners are, how would a woman start with solo travel? I know we've jumped around a lot, and I think there are so many ways that you can start. You can literally ask AI, "Hey, I'm a solo traveler. I'd like to go away for 3 days." You can just talk to it. I'd like to go away for 3 days. I have this much money, and I live in this place, and it will output suggestions for a solo travel trip. A great way for anyone to get started with solo travel is just taking short trips around your house that you feel that you're familiar with it, but still actually go stay somewhere, go do something. And I think that's a really great way of starting to solo travel.
More women need to hear that, just because I can imagine, and not everybody has that bug to travel, but I think those that do, sometimes, we can let life get in the way. And that becomes an excuse to put things off. And I just know, and you obviously know from your experiences, that every trip you take adds to your life in some way, whether it's a negative or positive experience, I think, because not all travel is always completely a positive thing. One would hope. But, you're going to get a mixed bag because you're dealing with different people and different cultures. But yeah, I think it's a really important thing.
I recently did an interview, and I had a woman reach out to me on social media. I could literally hear her through her message. And she said, I have 2 girls. One of them is special needs. And she explained all the things she's going through. And she said, I have to solo travel. I have to get away. Will you help me? And I said, yes, let's start planning. How much money do you have? And I'm not a travel, I don't plan travel for people, but I could hear her. I could hear the need for her soul to literally break loose, her spirit to break loose. And I said, you're going to have to turn to your husband and say, I need 48 hours. And you're going to leave on a Friday. You'll be home on Sunday. You can put a casserole in the freezer for them. They'll figure it out, and take time for yourself so that you can come back whole and able to continue to be the all-giving woman that so many women are. And it's really exciting. And for me, I think that's a byproduct that I hadn't expected from the series, but that it's kind of coming into focus of how many women I can help.
Well, and just as a side note of that, because what you're teaching on the show, is one thing, right? So it's learning the culture and the people and the places, but it's such a confidence builder for people, that kind of an experience. Like you said, even if it's a 2-day, it's a weekend thing, to be able to do it and then come out the other end of it and say, I did that. I left what I thought I couldn't leave for 2 hours. I left behind for 3 days and everybody was fine, that kind of thing. I just think it's so important. You are doing amazing work. And I feel like it's such a fun, joyful job. I mean, it's work, I know, because you're producing it, but still, what a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. I feel like I've worked hard to create this over many, many, many years. So thank you. I'm happy to be where I landed.
So Pamela, I mean, your zest for adventure and curiosity seriously is so refreshing. And I'm in awe of your sense of independence and pursuit of kind of living life on your own terms, which is really, really important. So you're just an inspiration to all of us. Thank you again for joining us and sharing your story with us. And maybe we'll get you back after season 2 when we can hear all about all the travels. I'm of course going to be on that Bali show, which is 4 episodes?
It is 4 episodes in Bali and 2 episodes in southern Vietnam. And then we head up to Hanoi for season 2. And your listeners can find me and connect with me on Instagram at the Pamela Holt and also on Facebook. If they have questions or they're looking for a little inspiration, I would love to share it with them.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, that's it for now. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Journeys Through Change podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or really wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us and leave a review if you've enjoyed this episode. And share it with a friend or on social media to spread the good word, so more women like you can find us and join in on the fun. For more information on the podcast or Day by Day book, go to livedaybyday.com.